Hi there. Hi, and welcome to the latest First Tuesday free webinar from New Energy Work. Thank you ever so much for your interest in this webinar on polyvagal theory and shiatsu. We have had over 600 people sign up for this webinar, so it's like amazing, really, really popular. And just want to say hi to all of those of you who are on the live event, and also to those of you who are watching the live or some of the recordings that we've got. Thank you very much for your interest. Okay, we've got 60 minutes together. I'm going to show you around. We've got loads of people coming in on the chat already. Norma, Steve, Dom from Australia. Yes, apparently it's only 6:30 a.m. in Australia now, so it's not so bad with daylight savings. So that's really great to have you here. We've got people from all over the world, as usual. Here is Charlotte from Hamburg, Alexandra from Vienna, and they're all coming in. You can see the chat. Even if you're watching the live replay, you can see the chat. You can see all the messages coming in. Hey, Paniata from Athens, Switzerland, Heidelberg, Germany. I can't even keep up with it. USA. Okay, cool. It's just great to have you here. As I say, we've got 600 people. It's like that. Okay, before we start the webinar slides, I just want to give you a little bit of background on how we got this material together. It was because of the research we did for our online treating stress and trauma course with Shiatsu and TCM, and we did a lot of reading about and a lot of research of part of that course. And part of that course, I read this book. This is my first one, this pocket guide to polyvagal theory. That was pretty interesting. And then I decided to go for the full-on Stephen Porges's main manual, which is really heavy duty going, but I managed to get through it, and it's very, very interesting. And a lot of the material I found out from there I've presented in this webinar. So, and then currently I'm reading this. One of the online course participants recommended this, and it's really good. It's written by someone who is Stanley Rosenberg, who's actually a roll fat and a craniosacral guy. So he's kind of in our area. And interesting, a lot of practical techniques in that. So that's where we came from with this material. And I have to say a personal thing. This is my shiatsu room, by the way. This is where I work. I've just been working all day doing treatments as normal, which is what I'm going to do during the day. And just so happened I had a new client today who had some anxiety issues, some particular types of headaches on the side of the head, tension in the SCM muscle, breathing problems, and a problem in the digestive organs, okay? Also, there was a real problem with the diaphragm and the breathing. And I have to say that it couldn't have been better time for this webinar, because I could just see right through it with polyvagal theory. I could see exactly where it all fitted together. I just did a very, very quick treatment, really. I was only worked on for about half an hour. Most of it was guided breathing exercises, awareness exercises. And I just found, I mean, I could understand it from the point of view of Shiatsu and TCM, but I tell you, polyvagal theory just really helped me understand what was going on, and to give the guy lots of information on how to help himself. Okay, so I'm really excited about it. It's really, really interesting work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually start the slideshow. We've got 1 hour together. It's going to go very quickly. I've got lots of material for you. And here's the slides, okay? So obviously it's about Shiatsu and polyvagal theory. I think it's a fantastically powerful combination, as you'll find out as I share some of the information that we've come up with, we've discovered just in the last 6 months at New Energy Work. Okay, so let's just see. Okay, so let's just see a little bit about webinars. Okay, we've got polls. I'm going to give you a poll in a minute and find out about where you are and stuff like that. There's the chat feature, which most of you have found pretty easy to use. You can say hi to everyone there. And if there's any questions later on, I'll try and keep up with them if possible. I've got some handouts for you as we go along, a couple of handouts that you might be interested in. And of course, we've got the slides, which you can see. I've also got a couple of video clips that I link to YouTube videos that I'm going to run as part of the webinar. And please have your paper and pencil ready, because I'm going to give you one exercise, like an alignment exercise during the webinar. And it's going to be, like I say, 60 minutes long. All right, so that's how it's going to work. Okay, so let's have a look. We've got a couple of polls, and we're going to find out what you are, whether you're a practitioner. Let me just launch this poll. Okay, could you just tell us whether you are a Shiatsu student, a practitioner, a teacher, or other, and just get a kind of idea of who we're we're talking to here. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, we've got well over 100 people watching live, and we've got another 500 people waiting for the recording. So thank you very much for your interest there. Okay, so how are we doing? Well, most of you are Shiatsu practitioners. Some of you are students. About 10% of you are students. 80% roughly are Shiatsu practitioners. But we've got about 10% of teachers here. So that's really, I really think that's exciting, because hopefully it'll spread the information into the Shiatsu world. Really love that. Okay, and we've got a few people who are not involved in Shiatsu, and that's cool too. Everyone is welcome here. Okay, so that's really, really, really great. So let's just find out something else about you. What I'd like to know is where are you? Okay, and I've kind of divided the world up into different categories. So Americas is North and South America, Europe and Scandinavia, anyone in Africa or the Middle East, Asia and the Far East, Australia and the Pacific. So let's see, we've got, not surprisingly, we've got most of you are around 90% of you are from Europe and Scandinavia, but we've got quite a few people from America. Hi there. Yep, 8% of you are from the Americas, and we've got 4% from Australia, and that's terrific because it is pretty early still, 6:30 a.m. So that's great dedication for you. Okay, cool, very good. Thank you very much for that. Now, one other thing I think might be really useful, and that's just to give me an idea. I would like you to tell me or tell us how much do you know about polyvagal theory? Like, do you know nothing about it, a little about it, quite a lot, or are you an expert? So if you're an expert, just check the last last box there. Oh, okay, here we go. Well, here we go. Look at this. We've got nearly 40% of you in the audience or in the participating around the world. Around 36% of you know nothing about polyvagal theory, and 48% know a little. Okay, so only 70% know quite a lot. Okay, so bear with me. I'm going to try and make it as progressive as I can. And as I say, we're just going to cover some of the exciting things that we've discovered in the last 6 months at New Energy Work as we've been researching this. So let's see. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Just get rid of that. That's cool. Right. Okay. So I've got 6 main areas I'd like to cover in the next hour or the next 50 minutes we've got left. I'd like to just think about why polyvagal theory and Shiatsu fit so well together. For those of you who haven't heard about polyvagal theory, then I'd like to just give you a brief guide to where it comes from and what it's all about. Then I'd like to do an exercise on alignment and show how the purposes and the way that we do alignment and centering fits with polyvagal theory. I'd like to show you how we can map polyvagal theory directly to the idea of the 3 burners. Particularly excited about some of the links between the polyvagal theory and the fire element functions, which we'll look at, and particularly I will look at the whole hearing and listening, the function of hearing and listening, how it developed from an evolutionary point of view, how we understand it in terms of Chinese medicine, and how that fits with polyvagal theory. Okay, and then I thought we'd do a review. So quite a lot of material. What we'll try and do is we'll try and leave some oh, here we are. Catherine's doing some. Yes, good. I've just seen a few things in the polyvagal theory poll, which is Catherine was saying she's done some psychotherapy, because psychotherapy and some other forms of bodywork have been quite influenced by, and craniosacral therapy have been quite influenced by polyvagal theory in the last 10 years or so. So you may have worked, if you do another modality, you may have heard of it. Okay. So let's, but I think it has a particular relevance to Shiatsu, as we will find out in the next few slides. Okay. So why is polyvagal theory such a good fit with Shiatsu? Well, it's very interesting because what it does is it's basically kind of a new paradigm for Western medicine. I know you might kind of groan and go, yeah, okay, we've been doing it for like 5,000 years. But what's happening in Western medicine is, especially in psychotherapy and neurophysiology, is they're just kind of coming up with the idea that the mind and the body might be connected. So that's kind of like exciting, because that means that, yes, we know about that already and we've got a whole technology. So let's get together on this. Okay. Connects the mind body through the autonomic nervous system. Now we do it through the concept of ki, but as we'll see, a lot of what we do maps together. It's a new paradigm for them, and it's what we've been doing all along. The other very interesting thing is it gives an explanation, a neurological explanation for why emotions are linked with the organs and how feeling the internal organs can affect our emotional states. Okay. And a lot of the TCN connections, as we'll find out this evening, can be mapped directly to the neurophysiological connections of polyvagal theory. So that is kind of exciting. And I think it's a great fit for Shiatsu. Okay. Now, in Chinese medicine, of course, we have the concept of ki. Now, that's obviously what links the body and mind together, a fundamental idea of how the mind, body, and spirit are connected. Now, that's culturally a difficult thing to understand for us in the West, because we've got the mind-body split, which we inherited from Descartes. So around 400 years ago, Descartes wrote his famous book, which had "I think, therefore I am." And that started the whole mind-body split thing, which has gone all the way through Western science, Western medicine, right up until today. Okay, so, yep, there definitely is supposed to be sound, Cheryl. And there's sound going out here, so hopefully you can hear it. Yep, so we've got the concept of ki. The mind-body split has held Western medicine back a long time, for several hundred years. And people like Stephen Porges think that the mind-body split is really a problem. And the reason they don't like it is because it stopped psychotherapy and neurophysiology collaborating in research. It's kind of segmented everything off. And that's an unfortunate thing that's happened in Western science and Western medicine. Okay, so what we've left with in Western medicine, we've got a very mechanistic view of how the body works, and it tends to be very materialistic. So it tends to be a mechanistic materialist model, which has always kind of like ignored the mind-body split. So we've got like psychotherapy, the spirit will be separated off from the physical body. That's what's happened in the West. And of course, that didn't happen in China because they didn't have the whole Enlightenment thing going on. And so they kept that concept of ki central to their medicine. Okay, so that's just a very brief idea of why I think polyvagal theory is an exciting development in Western thought, because what it does is it just opens the door to let them understand what we're doing, and it gives us a language for us to be able to explain all of the things that we do every single day in our Shiatsu clinic. Okay, so let's go on to the next point, which is point 2, which is what is polyvagal theory? Okay. Well, it's a completely new idea of the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, I don't know if you were ever taught it back in AP&P, but basically the old idea of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system was a bit like a seesaw. So the sympathetic nervous system activated us, and the parasympathetic system tended to calm us down and restore us. However, Stephen Porges was involved in medicine and neurophysiological research, and he just didn't really think that that model of the autonomic nervous system really explained a lot of weird things that happened. For example, premature babies would often have their heart stopping. Couldn't really figure out why that was happening. Didn't seem to make any sense with the way that we understood the nervous system. So basically, he looked back through evolution and he discovered that actually the parasympathetic nervous system, which is mainly the vagal nerve here that goes right down through the body, was actually divided up into two different branches. There was the older, very old, primitive part of the vagal nerve, which wasn't myelinated. It's a very primitive, slow thing, goes right down into the lower part of the abdomen, to the digestive organs, as well as some branches going to the heart and lungs. There was that system, but there was also a very much newer system, which is called the ventral or mammalian or the smart vagus, which is a completely new thing that's just developed in mammals. It comes as part of the cranial nerve, so it doesn't go down through the spine. It goes through from the cranial nerves down and it basically dominates the what we call the upper heater, the heart and the lungs. Okay, and it also connects through the other cranial nerves with lots of other features of functions in the face. Now, what he discovered through his research was that the main emphasis of the regulation of the nervous system is the whole concept of safety. And as you know, all animals are always looking for safety, obviously from predators and things like that. But mammals have had a particular type of adaptation that's allowed us to survive even among much stronger and bigger animals, you know, like lions and, you know, rhinoceroses and other scary things that are bigger than us. And that was even true of very early mammals that were, you know, before humans were involved. They discovered through evolution ways of surviving predators and creating a safe environment. And that safe environment has been created mainly by communication, by being able to hear, to talk, to be able to give expression. So we know when we're scared, and we know when we're safe, when we're going to be looked after. Okay. And that mammalian ventral or smart vagus, that is the neurological system that allows us to be able to create a sense of safety within a social environment. And that's something that we've inherited from the mammals, and we've developed it obviously more ourselves with language and all the rest of it. Okay. So that's briefly how polyvagal theory came about. And it has got a lot more detail to it, of course, which you can read up about it, particularly in this very big book, if you want to read the whole story of the whole thing. But some of the most important things we're going to cover in this webinar. Okay. So I thought maybe what I'd do now is I'm going to play a clip from YouTube. Now, occasionally, okay, sometimes we've found that some participants, it takes a little while for it to come through because it's being fed from YouTube. So stay with us if you have problems with streaming. Most of you should be able to see this clip, which I've linked from YouTube. And it's actually, Stephen Porges is actually explaining, well, I think we might as well get him to do it. He invented it. Get him to explain what polyvagal theory is. So here it is.
The polyvagal theory really is the understanding of how our body reacts to various challenges, and that our reactions are really based on the evolution of our autonomic nervous system. And what that really means is that our evolutionary history as vertebrates, during that history, the autonomic nervous system changed. And as it changed, it created different circuits. And those circuits function in a hierarchy, meaning the newer circuits can inhibit older circuits. But the older circuits were circuits of defense. So in terms of models of psychotherapy or psychosomatic medicine, what we start understanding is that most diseases, including chronic diseases of physical health, are really diseases of the autonomic nervous system. And the autonomic nervous system changes with mental health as well. So what we find with polyvagal theory is that our reactions to the world follow this evolutionary pattern in which the newest circuit is a circuit of social interaction, which is linked to a uniquely mammalian vagal pathway, which is a nerve going from the brainstem to the heart. And this nerve is linked in the brainstem to the muscles, the nerves that regulate the muscles of the face and head.
Okay, so that was just Stephen Porges. I just thought you might like to see him directly from him. And explained how it was an evolutionary thing and how this new type of nerve, vagal nerve, connects with the heart. Okay, so yeah, I've just streamed it. Hopefully you could see that. And if not, then you can check it out on the YouTube channel. I'll send you some links later on. Okay, so here we go. So basically the idea is that there isn't just a balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic system, which basically is how it's still even taught now in medical school. In fact, I was at the integrative health convention a few weeks ago. I was presenting there with some doctors. It was all kind of cool and everything. And I was talking to a med student there, and she just had absolutely no idea about polyvagal theory, which is kind of a shame, because as Stephen Porges has said in that video, and I've definitely confirmed that in my own practice here in the Shiatsu Center, a lot of symptoms that people are getting, especially stress-related symptoms, even if it's not really a traumatic thing, just a stress type of symptom, so much of it can be explained by the autonomic nervous system, by the polyvagal theory, and it could be saving a lot of money on meds and, you know, lots of unnecessary procedures if that was understood. So we're working on that. We're trying to get the doctors to catch up with this whole thing. Okay, so instead of just the sympathetic and parasympathetic, we've got these two branches that have different functions, and we'll see later on how these connect with Shiatsu theory, because unsurprisingly, there's a very, very close match there, because the autonomic nervous system is to do with the internal perception of the stress relaxation response. And so obviously it's going to be likely that it'll map to TCM, which is a metaphoric system, which is basically our perception of our energy or our body-mind connection. Okay. So anyway, if you want to have a little look at the diagram, this is what the mammalian or smart vagus looks like. You can see it connects down from the brainstem. It connects into the larynx. It governs speech. It also connects up into the ear. We'll see about that later. It also connects into the facial muscles and goes down into the heart. And another branch goes to the lungs. Okay, now it's very closely connected to the emotional state. And the reason for that is because the ventral vagus actually acts like a brake on the heart. Now, what this means is basically the heart rate, the natural heart rate, is actually much higher than you experience it in normal life. It would be naturally much higher if the ventral vagal nerve wasn't braking it and just kind of like calming it down. Reason for that is because if we get really excited, like when we were in love, or we're playing about, or we're having fun, okay, our heartbeat increases, but that heartbeat increase is not the sympathetic nervous system and the adrenaline going, okay, let's get speeding up. It's not that at all. It's just the ventral vagal, the social, smart vagal nerve, just taking the brake off a bit. You get a bit excited, you feel you're breathing a bit more, you're feeling happy, everything is cool, you're not overdriving, and you're not getting into an adrenal state. Okay, and that enables us to get excited and to communicate and to play and to be creative, to be compassionate, all those kind of things, without having to engage the sympathetic nervous system and the adrenal response. So that's how we use it. Okay, and that's an interesting part of the parasympathetic nervous system. Okay, it also increases the respiration a bit, because you need a bit more breath in there. Okay, and so that's how it works. Okay, now it's another story when we go below the diaphragm, because down below the diaphragm we have the dorsal vagal nerve, or the reptilian or primitive nerve branch. This is unmyelinated. It's kind of like an old thing. It's like a little bit slow, but it can be very powerful because, as Stephen just said in his video there from YouTube, the parasympathetic nervous system works as a hierarchy. So when it, what we do, and I've got another chart for this in a minute, so just bear with me. What we do normally is if we get a bit excited, you know, we're having fun and everything, the ventral vagal nerve will regulate the heartbeat by just taking the brake off, okay? But then if we get really stressed, like we've got a deadline, or we've got some real stress, or the boss is telling us what to do, or we've got, you know, whatever, and we go into the adrenal sympathetic nervous system, that's the next stage. So then we use the adrenaline and we use that sympathetic nervous system response to enable us to get things done. And that can, of course, turn into a stress state where we get fearful and all the rest of it. Now, that continues. But what can happen is if that isn't enough to get us out of danger, like, for example, if in trauma, if we're held down, physically held down, or we can't get our boss to listen to us, or we have to do an exam, and we have to do an exam and the deadline's coming up and there's nothing we can do about it, and the adrenal system is not sufficient to get us out of danger, then what happens is the body reverts to the most primitive response, which is the freeze response or the shutdown response. And that is when we literally react like a reptile. Now, what happens with reptiles is that they actually shut down, the heartbeat really decreases, they become immobile. And so that is not a good state to be for a mammal, because we need to have that heartbeat going, we need blood in the brain, we need to be breathing, okay? So if you get things like IBS, digestive problems, all kinds of different things below the diaphragm that are related to stress can be part of this freeze response and this shutdown response that's happening as a result of the overwhelm that we're experiencing in the nervous system. Okay. Now, there's a chart I used on the previous webinar. I love this chart. I show this chart to half my clients, and the thing that I really love about it is it basically takes away the guilt that people naturally feel, or the shame that they feel when they go into the shutdown response, because people really find it very devastating for their whole idea about themselves if they start to find themselves going into that numb, dissociated state. And you see it a lot in like abuse victims and things like that, where it's even in court, they say, well, why didn't you fight back and stuff like that. The reason people don't fight back when they're overwhelmed is because the dorsal vagal system takes over. It's not a conscious thing. It just takes over and starts to shut everything down. Okay. And now I've got this as a handout. I'd like to just share this with you. Let me just see where I've got this handout. Let's just have a look. I should have it here. Yeah. Okay. So I've got this polyvagal chart. I'm going to share it with you. So you should see it come up. And you can download this and print it out. You can find it on the internet too. If you just Google polyvagal theory or something, you'll find it. But sure, download this if you like. Yeah, so basically, if you look at the bottom of the chart, ventral vagal system, that's the creative place where everything is cool. We're grounded, in the present, joyful. And if you want more detail on what's happening physiologically, you can look down that right side there when you download it or check it out later. Okay. Then we go into the sympathetic nervous system. That's the red zone. That's when we engage the adrenal system, but we're still able to operate. And it's only finally when we find that we're overwhelmed, that we don't consciously do it. We get taken into that freeze state as a final stage of the defense of our body mind system. Okay, right. So what I thought we'd do now is I thought we'd go through an alignment exercise, and let's just explore it in terms of polyvagal theory. So what I'd like you to do now is just get your piece of paper. I've got mine here, right? Piece of paper and pencil. And I'm going to talk you through an exercise. I'm going to do it with you, okay? We're just going to do a regular kind of alignment and centering exercise. Just see what happens, okay? So first of all, just going to get ourselves to close our eyes, okay? If you haven't got a piece of paper, don't worry, you can just use your memory, okay? And we're going to just tune into our energy. So we're just going to scan through our own energy from head to foot. Just like you to feel how you are, how you're feeling in your body, how you're feeling mentally, how's your mind? How are you feeling emotionally? Okay, and physically. Just scanning through. Okay, so now let's just do some common things that we do as Shiatsu practitioners. Let's try a basic alignment technique, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to float our head up, and we're going to relax our sacrum down. And I would like you to just experience what happens to your spine as you allow the head to float up from the head top. Relax the sacrum down. And then we're going to relax the muscles around the joints, the back muscles. Relax the hips. Okay. Right, now just see how that feels. It usually has a very calming effect, which we'll just think about in a bit later, okay? Right, so now we're going to try lower abdominal breathing. So again, closing our eyes, We're going to direct our attention into the lower part of the body, in other words, below the diaphragm, into the dantian and the whole lower abdominal area. And we're going to direct our breath into that area. Okay, we're just doing regular low abdominal breathing. So we're bringing the chi down with the breath into the lower abdomen. As you breathe out, just allow the chi or the energy to stay there in the lower abdomen, just letting the air out. Okay, and we're going to relax all of that area as we do the lower abdominal breathing. Okay, very good. So now let's bring our attention to the heart center. We do like a meditation for that. So I want you to bring your attention into the heart chakra area, or the little dantian, whatever you want to call it. And we just relax that area, bringing the breath into the heart area. Just do a few breaths and just relax that area. And just get an idea of the energy you feel as you create space and openness in this area here. Very good, okay? And now finally, we'll just do some calming mind exercises. So with the next few breaths, we're just going to relax our mind. Just observe your thoughts and relax your mind. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is just reflect back on the kind of energy movement or feeling you had as you aligned your spine and opened up the spine, relaxed the muscles. How did that contrast with the feeling of breathing down into the lower dantian, then breathing into the heart area, and then calming the mind? So there's 4 different stages there, and I'm going to do it with you. I'm going to draw a little picture of how it felt. You can do it in any way you like, just to record the experiences of those 4 things. Okay, so we have the alignment. I'm not going to show you what you're doing. You do your own. Okay, we have the alignment. And you can kind of draw what kind of feeling that gave you. Okay. Okay, so what I would like you to ask yourself is, did you have a different experience as you did each of those exercises? Did it feel the same or different? And I must say, I drew really quite a different picture there. Okay, I found that when I did the releasing and the alignment exercise, it was very much a kind of opening and very calming type of feeling. The lower abdominal breathing was much quieter, but when I went up into the heart area, it was more of an expansive type of feeling, much more dynamic than when I was down here. I don't know if you felt the same kind of thing. And then calming the mind had a different type of feeling again. So this is a very common set of exercises that we do. And Birgit has lost the video, but it's still here. We're all still here. So just refresh your browser and have another go at it. Okay. Yeah, this is four very different experiences that we've had when we've done the alignment. So how could we maybe map that up against the polyvagal theory? Okay, so let's just think why we do it. Okay, why do we align and center ourselves? Well, it might be an obvious thing to think about, but obviously one of the things we do is we regulate our own energy. So we're actually we're training ourselves, regulating ourselves, our own energy system. And what we're doing as well from the point of view of polyvagal theory is we are creating a sense of safety in our own energy field. And that sense of safety will then communicate that to the receiver. And that's one of the most important things I think we can do when we're working with people, is to give them a sense of safety. And it's not just safety environment, it's also communicated through our touch. And we'll do a little bit more on that later. That sense of safety in the touch, which we develop in ourselves by doing the alignment exercises, is key to one of the aspects of Shiatsu touch. Okay, now look, what I did here is I've done a diagram of someone looking from the side, and we can link all of those exercises to key components of the polyvagal theory. Because when we do the alignment, in fact, if we do any Doin exercises and do anything to do with the spine, any exercises to do with the skeletal muscles, what we're doing there is we're basically calming down the sympathetic nervous system, because the sympathetic nervous system runs down through the spine. It's interesting that we do that first of all. Now, once we do that, low abdominal breathing, the effect that will have is it will basically give us a sense of safety in an immobilized state. And that's really, really interesting, because one of the most powerful things that we can do as humans is reach a deep sense of safety in an immobilized state, because the dorsal system is so powerful at shutting everything down. If we can reach a safe space where all the internal organs are relaxed, where the dorsal vagal system is activated in immobilization, but is not sending a message to our brain saying that we're in danger, that is an incredibly deep sense of relaxation. Now, what happened, certainly what I found was when I went to the heart center, it felt more expansive, the energy. And that fits in with the ventral vagal system, because the ventral vagal system is much more to do with communication. It's to do with the facial nerves and the functioning of the eyes, the ears, speaking. We'll find out about that a bit later on. And so that's to do with communication, okay? And the cortex, the higher parts of the brain, connect down through the amygdala, down into the cranial nerves and the sympathetic nervous system. And they mediate between, in a top-down way, in the same way that the internal organs give information upwards about our emotional state. So it just struck me the other day when I was doing my alignment, I thought, wait a minute, this really makes sense in terms of polyvagal theory. Okay, so we've got 20 minutes to go. So let's go on to the next few topics, which are the three dantians. Now, the three dantians are an amazingly powerful concept in not only Shiatsu, but in lots of spiritual practices. They're kind of like a little bit connected to the chakras. I remember doing chanting with Paul Lundberg from Kishi, or based on the different dantians. Basically, it's a fundamental regulation of the upper thought processes with the upper dantian, the emotional center, which is represented by the heart center, and the lower center, the lower dantian center, which is the first of the three dantians. Now, of course, as we've just seen, those three things map directly to polyvagal theory, because we have got the cortex, and this is about meditative state, so the sympathetic nervous system is kind of calmed down. We've got the cortex, our conscious awareness, directly related to the upper dantian, the ventral vagal system, which is to do with the heartbeat, the breathing, but it's also primarily concerned with compassion, connection, social engagement. It connects with the second dantian. And the dorsal vagus, which, as we mentioned before, with the meditation aspects of it, if we can immobilize ourselves without fear, that gives us a fundamental sense of safety, which is transmitted through the reptilian nervous system. And that kind of explains why we put so much emphasis on the lower hara, which, to be honest, always seems to have bugged me a bit, because you think, okay, the heart is very active, you've got heart rate variability. We'll talk about that on another webinar. You've got all kinds of kind of exciting things happening up here. But then you think, well, what is really down there? I mean, you've got the dantian, the center of gravity of the body, but really you've got all the internal digestive organs. There's got to be something else that gives it such a powerful metaphoric impact, really, rather than just, it's kind of like a load of tubes, go to the toilet, eat stuff, whatever. Okay. And I'm just convinced now that immobilization without fear is one of the most powerful things that connect with the dantian. Okay. The lower dantian. Okay. So now topic number 5, just a couple more to go. We've got this one and another one. Okay. Mo's lost the sound. Okay. We're still here. The mic's on. Yes, your gut brain. Yeah, that's it. The second brain. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because 80% of the fibers that go, this is an interesting thing, I should have mentioned it before, 80% of the information that goes through the ventral vagus, especially the dorsal vagus, is actually afferent. In other words, it goes up to your brain. Okay, so all your internal organs are telling you all the time what's happening. So if you get pain in the stomach, intestine or grumblings, stuff like that, that's all information that's going up into the higher parts of your brain. Only 20% of the nerves are actually telling your digestion what to do from the upper down. So most information is going up. Okay. So now let's look at the fire element. Now, the fire element in Chinese medicine is really, really interesting because, okay, we've got the lots of different aspects of fire element. We've got the mind or the Shen. We've got social engagement. We've got love, joy, compassion. We've also got the eyes, the Shen coming out of the eyes. I don't know how my Shen is doing. How's it doing? Not too bad. I hope you can't see much on a webcam, I know. But you've also got the speech, because you've got Masanagas meridian here. You've got the fire, the tongue directly connected to the heart meridian. And most, very, very interesting, which is my 6th point, which we'll go on to in a minute, is the whole concept of social listening, which is basically being able to discern sounds. Okay, so we'll look at that in more detail as another whole topic, right? Okay, so cool. Yeah, so that's that slide again. Oh, I've got a little video for you. Yeah, look, this is a little clip from our latest online course. It's me working on Nicole, regulating the heart area through heart meridian techniques. And what we're looking at is basically that ventral vagal perception being regulated by heart meridian points. So it's only a short 30-second video. So maybe you'd like to have a look at that. Let's just have a look at that now. What do you think, Nicole? There were some points when the heart one was quite good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I could feel myself. Just as you're going along, I feel more. It's like a nourished feeling. It's very grounding, and just feeling much more at ease and comfortable.
Great.
Yeah.
And I thought there was one super around here that was particularly good. I felt that. Did you feel
exactly,
that one?
Yeah, it's suddenly like this big drop then.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'm tuning in through this hand and I'm waiting either on specific subos like heart 1 or finding subos along the channel that give me a feeling like this one here of the heart energy becoming more solid and more kind of condensed there. That's just a little video clip of Nicole and me working on the online course. And that's when we start to make connections between the fire element and the ventral vagal system. And so there's obviously a great deal of overlap there, a great deal of mapping to go on. Just to remind you of this chart again, we've got the normal regulation of the fire element in TCM, that's to say when the Shen is nice and comfortable, and the heart blood, if you want it in TCM terms, or in Masanagas terms, if the center, emotional center is kind of everything is cool, then we're going to be in that green zone. We're going to be in the social engagement zone. And when we go out of it, that's going to affect the fire element in different ways. And in the course, we go into a lot of detail, dissociation, the freeze response, and all kinds of stuff like that. Okay, so here we are. Let's see what we've got next. Oh yeah, here we go. So this, if you want a little bit more detail on this, this is, I copied this out of Stephen Paul's book. It's actually right here on page 170, and I lovingly recreated it for you. And I've actually got it as a handout. So let me see if I can find that. Yeah, social engagement system. I'm going to share this handout so you can download it and print it out later. So basically, the way he describes the social engagement system, which is obviously very closely related to the fire element, is that the cortex, that's of course the upper processing in the brain, is interacting all the time with the social environment. Okay, and the cortex pretty much directly connects down into the cranial nerves. So there are several cranial nerves that are involved in connecting the heart, the breathing, as we mentioned before, with the ventral brake, and with various different muscles that are used and different systems that are used in social engagement. And those are the kind of things that we pick up on immediately in terms of fire element. In other words, is a person expressive? Are they happy? Are they compassionate? You know, do they listen properly? Are they socially engaged? All those things we would classify as the fire element. Okay, so let's have a look at these cranial nerves. Well, we've got the heart and the lungs, bronchi. We've also got the laryngeal muscles, which are the ones that create sound. Okay, we've also got the facial muscles that are used in facial expressions. So if someone's shut down and the ventricular, you get this feeling of them being shut down like this and losing all expression. And we would say that person lacks any kind of fire element. And we might even say the large intestine is like shutting them down. There's different ways of interpreting it, but the fire element is very closely related to that. Okay. So we've got making the sound, we've got the facial muscles, and we're going to do a little bit more on this later. We've also got the middle ear muscles. I'll look at that a little bit later. It's fascinating about how we listen to things. Also, what do you do when you like someone? You want to get something better. What do? You normally say, well, let's go out for coffee, or let's go out and have dinner, or let's come round to mine for dinner. Okay. And that is because the muscles that are used for chewing and swallowing, pharyngeal muscles and the mastication muscles, are all closely connected nervous connections via the cranial nerves with the social engagement system. So that's why we like to be around people, we like relaxing, we like eating. The whole thing is all part of that same nervous system. And you notice that eating now, especially for humans, has a very expanded social function. Okay, so hopefully you can download that. I can always send you a link if you didn't manage to download it, and we can, I can send it out to you after the webinar if you like. Okay, so yes, yes, Sylvia, this we know in Italy. Yes, exactly. The Italians are probably the most developed country in Europe for the social engagement with the eating thing. Very good point. Okay, so here we are, social engagement. Oh my goodness, we've only got 12 minutes long and 12 minutes left, sorry. And I really wanted to share this because this is like really, really interesting. Okay, now, you know the whole thing that we get taught in Shiatsu about the triple heater and the small intestine meridian, because they are like the whole social listening thing. Like you say, oh yes, I can hear, you know, my hearing is fine. I had it tested, it's fine, but I cannot hear, I'm in a crowded room or there's some background noise, and I can't hear someone talking to me, or, oh, you know, my husband's always, or my wife's always saying, you never listen to me when, you know, you always just can't hear me. So you go and have your hearing checked. There's nothing wrong. And this is a very big issue with autism spectrum. And it's also a very big issue with a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder clients. And I've got several that I'm treating at the moment who have this problem. They're hypersensitive to low frequency or high frequency. And they can't, often they can't hear when people are talking to them. Okay. Now we're taught that in Shiatsu as being part of the fire element. Okay. Ever wonder why? Well, I must say, I never thought, why on earth is that? Okay. Deafness is related to the kidney. So if you're actually deaf and the deafness increases with age or whatever, with illness, then that's related to the kidneys, the actual hearing function. But social listening, the ability to distinguish particular frequencies is part of the fire element in Chinese medicine and in Shiatsu theory. Okay, so we've got the, if you think of it as layers, we've got the triple heater and the small intestine. They're the yang organs, and or yang meridians, and those meridians are supposed to energetically somehow affect the way sound comes in. Okay, that's what we're told, and I believed it, and I had good reason to believe it as well, because there's a neurophysiological explanation for exactly that function. And it's that function that protects the emotional center of the mind, the pericardium, and the heart. Okay. Now, what's happened in evolutionary terms is that our ears have developed in a completely different way. Back in the day, in the days of the dinosaurs, their hearing bones were connected to their jaw. So all they could hear was roaring and stomping about on the floor. They couldn't actually hear any high frequency sounds at all. Okay. But what happened with mammals, because we need more communication, mammals developed a completely separate hearing system. And that's described in neurophysiology as prosody. And what prosody means is the quality of speech. Not just a load of noise. It's like nice, melodic and understandable and soothing speech. And it's that nice, understanding and soothing and compassionate speech, which is a very, very important neurophysiological way that we interpret safety. So if we're around people who are talking nicely and calmly and compassionately and with facial expression, and they're listening to us, then we feel safe. Okay. Now, the problem is that when the nervous system kind of goes wrong, or the heart meridian goes out of balance, whatever you want to call it, okay, something really weird happens. And what happens is, and let me show you, okay, I want to show you right deep inside the ear here, okay? You notice that we have like the anvil and the hammer. You probably know about that, okay? And there's a tiny little muscle. It's the tiniest muscle in the body. It's only 1 millimeter long. It's tiny, okay? And that's the stapedius muscle, okay? You can see it there. And that little tiny muscle, what that does is it basically governs the tone. It governs the tension of the eardrum. And what it does is it makes sure that very low frequencies, especially very low frequencies, very high frequencies, are actually dampened down, acoustically dampened down in our ear, connecting with our nervous system, so that we can hear people talking to us in a noisy environment or a low frequency environment. Okay, so okay, this allows perception of high frequency sounds more, but not the very high frequency. It's just the prosody frequency, okay? And yeah, it's the smallest muscle in the body, and it controls the smallest bone, which is the stapes bone, which is a tiny bone. And what that does is when that nervous system is working properly, it masks the low and the high frequency, and it allows the perception of speech, okay? So can you kind of make a connection there? It's exactly what we describe in Chinese medicine with the triple heater and the small intestine meridian. Is exactly that function neurophysiologically, okay? Now, the most amazing thing I just realized when I was looking at all this is, of course, that makes a direct connection, because look, we've got the cranial nerves, nerve 7 goes straight into the middle ear muscles and governs the prosody speech, okay? And look at the location of the points. Have you ever thought why triple heater and small intestine meridians, the whole meridian for a start, is all related to protection, safety, social listening? it's connected up. And the two main points that I use for the ear is we've got triple heater 21 and small intestine 19, and they're both used for listening issues. Okay, they're both directly related to this cranial nerve 7, which links directly in with the ability to hear prosody. Okay, so I just thought, oh my God, and this is just the start. It's just coming, more and more of these links are being made, and they allow us to realize exactly how powerful the information that we have through the meridian system is, because it's deeply connected to the neurological system. And the great, of course, we knew all this all along. Of course, yeah, okay, we've known it for 5,000 years, whatever. But the great thing is that now we have the language to actually just say and to be able to communicate with those doctors and scientists who are now entering that new paradigm. In other words, these two worlds have got a place where they can meet, okay, which I think is very, very exciting. And also, of course, it opens up all kinds of areas for research, doesn't it, that we may not have been able to access before. Okay, so here we go. We have only got 4 minutes left. Okay, and there's tons more. Okay, I tell you what, I've got a really, really good topic which I'd like to do on my next webinar, which is in December, which is what we're going to deconstruct the whole HARA diagnosis, because I'm starting to really realize what's actually going on when we do HARA diagnosis now. So what I'll do is when I send you a link to the recording in the next day or two, I'll send you a sign up link, and I'd love to see you on the next webinar. That's in December, first Tuesday of every month. Next year's a bank holiday, by the way, January, so we'll probably do it a week later. We've got some interesting things happening in the new year. We've got a fantastic new course for next spring. I won't even tell you about it. I'm so excited. Got a celebrity scientist guy who's going to do the webinar for that. It's going to be awesome. But let's just have a quick review. We've got 2 minutes. Okay, polyvagal theory and shiatsu, both systems link the mind, the emotions, and the body. It gives us a really clear idea of what happens in the vagal system. The vagal system is not a simple balancing between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. It's not like that at all. There's two systems. For me, it totally explains why we align, first of all, what the energetic effects are of what we do when we align and we center. Totally explains that for me. Also gives me an explanation of the 3 burners, because frankly, the lower burner, I've always had a bit of a problem with that. I just thought it's so fundamental in Chinese medicine. What is really going on there? I could never really get a real proper handle on it. And now I'm totally convinced it's that fear, it's that immobilization without fear, that primitive feeling of being safe and immobile at the same time, that really gives us that powerful feeling of safety in our energy when we give shiatsu. And that's one of the defining features, by the way, of shiatsu touch, is that power of safety that we give through our hands. And it's just incredible that we've got that tool. And now we can explain why in terms of modern physiology. Okay, fire element functions, the whole idea of the social engagement system maps perfectly with the fire element and the external yang meridians, including right down to the last detail of the tiny little bones and nerves and muscles that go from the cranium into the ear, and how that's linked to the other facial nerves. I just think that's just awesome, you know. So we've got meridian functions, TCM concepts, energy work concepts. We've got major energy centers of the body, totally like mapped directly to polyvagal theory. In a way that it's influenced other modalities like osteopathy and stuff like that. But I mean, we've got the Chinese medicine. So we've got that incredible resource there that links directly in with it. Okay, so very, very exciting. If you haven't signed up for our free month yet, we've only got a few days left on that. I'll send you a link if you're not already signed up. Loads of free stuff for that. Free access to the course. We just want to spread this material as much as we can. That's our aim. And we're giving away a lot of free material. We're going deeper and deeper into the stuff. We want to spread it everywhere because we believe that shiatsu has got a massive, massive contribution to world health. That's where we're coming from. It's very undervalued, shiatsu. It's absolutely awesome. And now we can explain many, many ways about how awesome it is and why it's so awesome, which I think is going to have massive repercussions. Really, really looking forward to the future. Okay, so thank you very, very much. See you on the next webinar, first Tuesday in December. Thank you so much for signing up. Over 600 people, absolutely overwhelmed with the interest. It's really great. If it takes us a day or two to answer an email, don't be surprised, because we've been, the last few weeks, we have been literally like overrun with people emailing us, signing up. But please get in contact. We're always here for you. Yeah, great. See you on the next webinar. Thank you very much.